Welcome back to the Imperfectionist Podcast. My name is David Rendell, and this is a special edition of the Imperfectionist Podcast. We are on the road. If you're watching this in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, my birthplace and the birthplace of two of my daughters. And I lived in Wisconsin for most of my life before I was 30 years old and moved to North Carolina, where I very happily live now. But I'm in town to do Ironman Wisconsin, but I wanted to keep creating podcast episodes. So I took my equipment on the road and we are recording from Wisconsin on my phone instead of in my studio. So I hope you enjoy this episode and I hope it works. But this is the Imperfectionist Podcast, so there's nothing to be afraid of, because if it doesn't work perfectly, it's going to be fine, because everything doesn't have to be perfect. So we've been talking about personality. We took a week off last week and we talked about Matt Stutzman. We talked about Joe Whale, Doodle Boy. We talked about Ironman triathlons. We talked about Chris Nikic, the first person with Down syndrome to complete an Ironman triathlon. But we had been talking for 2 weeks about personality. And so I want to talk, probably, I'm not sure on the timing, probably talk about two more aspects of personality today. And we'll start with, how do you understand what your personality is? We talked about the first time we talked about personality. We talked about personality isn't behavior, it's preferences. Right? It isn't behavior, it's preferences. You don't have a work personality and a home personality. That's behaviors. You have work behaviors and you have home behaviors, just like you might wear special clothes or special equipment to work. And then you wear different clothes at home, but you have the same body. You are the same person in both of those places. You might just look and also act differently. So your personality is your preferences, not your behaviors. And then what we talked about last week is that it's genetic, it's not environmental. You didn't develop your personality. You might have developed some of your behaviors, those kinds of things, but you didn't develop your personality through your environment, through your circumstances. And in fact, your personality actually ends up acting on your environment, the people around you, and your circumstances. So this week, what we're going to talk about is, still might be a little bit frustrating. Well, how do I get to my actual personality? What is my personality? How do I find it? So, and why does it matter, right? So, well, why don't I just do those work behaviors? Who cares what my personality even is? Well, here's why, right? Here's the payoff this week. The payoff is our energy and our confidence are linked to our personality. Okay. Our energy and our confidence are linked to our personality. So here's what happens. When your behaviors match your preferences, in other words, when your behaviors match your personality, that's called alignment, right? We've talked about the importance of that before, finding alignment. When your behaviors match your personality, when you get to do what you want to do, when your behaviors match your preferences, your energy levels go up. Exhaustion isn't just physical, it's also mental and emotional. And we don't just get tired because we have to do things, we get tired because of the things we have to do. And some things, even though they're not physically difficult, exhaust us because it doesn't match our personality, it doesn't match our preferences. That also means you can be energized by certain things that aren't energizing to other people, or that other people actually find de-energizing. So if you've ever wished you had more energy, if you wished you didn't have to drink so many Red Bulls, if you wished you weren't so tired, if you wished you didn't need so much coffee, I want to show you today how you can end up with more energy at the end of the day than you had at the beginning of the day, and it's to be obsessed with matching your behaviors to your personality. I was just doing a coaching call this week with a business owner, and he said he'd listened to the podcast, and it really struck him that he had been basically faking it at work. He'd been doing at work what he thought he was supposed to do. By the way, this is the founder and the owner of the business. This is the CEO of the business, okay? And he realized that he'd been faking at work. He'd been trying to behave in a way that doesn't fit his personality. And his exact words were, that was and is exhausting. And so we talked about ways to match what he wants to be doing, what he's good at, what he naturally is inclined to do, his personality, with the work that he does, right? So if you want more energy, I'll give you a perfect example. So maybe it's not a perfect example, but it's the examples I know because it's me. So I'm a professional speaker, but what I know about professional speaking and even public speaking is most people don't want to do it. In fact, they've done studies and people say they fear public speaking more than death. Seinfeld says that that means that at any given funeral, people would rather be in the coffin than giving the eulogy. And so what that means is that I love to do what most people would rather die than do. I look forward to doing something that most people would put off for any reason. People tell me they're going to have a panic attack, they're going to have a heart attack, they're going to throw up, they can't do it, it's not going to happen. I look forward to a situation that most people are paralyzed by. I'm energized by something that drains most people, and not only that, it drains them even before it happens. They're exhausted and overwhelmed before it even starts. Right? And that's another part of personality. Our confidence goes up when we're doing things that match our personality. Our energy and our confidence go up. So when I'm walking onto the stage for a speech, my confidence is high. Not just because I'm a speaker and I've done it before. No, the reason I'm a speaker and I've done it before is because I have that confidence. I'm doing what I was made to do. I know that I was born to do this. I know this is part of who I am. I'm not putting on a behavior. I'm not faking it. I'm not hoping that I can do what the audience wants from me. I know I can be who I am, and it's going to work. Right? Now think about that. How powerful would that be if you could wake up every day and in your interactions, not just at work but at home, you could be who you are and know it was going to be effective. That's what happens when our behaviors match our personality, when we find ourselves and we create situations where who we are matches where we are, where who we are matches what we do. So that's another question. How many of you would like to have more confidence? How many of you would like to look forward, hopefully, to your work in the day? In other words, hopefully meaning with hope, right? I think this is going to go well today. I believe this is going to go well today. I have a positive sense of the future because I know that what I'm doing matches who I am, and I know that I'm designed to do what I'm doing, so I know it's going to probably turn out well. And if it's not, I know I have what it takes to deal with that, right? So when I get on stage, my energy level goes up and my confidence level goes up. And this is what's interesting. And even if I'm on stage for an hour, and even if I'm on stage for an hour and a half, and even if I'm on stage for 2 hours, my energy level actually keeps going up. I'm not being drained by my activities. I'm being filled up by my activities. How many of you wish you were being filled up by your activities instead of drained by your activities? And that's what this means. This means that you can actually end the day with more energy than you had at the beginning of the day. The day itself, work itself, interactions themselves don't have to be draining. It's not just being awake that takes our energy away. It's the things we're doing with that time and with that energy. And what if some things that you invested your energy in gave you that energy back? I don't know if this analogy will work well, but imagine there's 2 sandwich shops and they both sell this delicious, delicious sandwich. And if you go into the one sandwich shop, you can give them $5 and they will give you the delicious, delicious sandwich. But when you go into the other sandwich shop, they'll give you the same delicious, delicious sandwich, but they don't want your $5. In fact, they give you $1 back. You leave with a sandwich and with more money than you came in with, right? That's what we're talking about. When you have a job, when you have work that doesn't fit who you are, you're making a trade-off, and that's fine. I'm going to give you my time and energy. and you're going to give me some money. You're going to give me the money that I need to put food on the table, to put clothes on my back, to pay for my family to live their life. I'm going to make an exchange with you, and I'm going to give you something, and you're going to give me something back. And I have to accept that trade-off. That's what most people are doing. Okay, I'll behave the way you want me to behave at work, even though it's not the way I want to behave, because I know it's going to get me something that I want. But when our behaviors match our preferences, when we have alignment with the situation, it's like going in to purchase something, except we don't have to make the trade-off. We don't have to purchase it. We get something back without having to give something up. Let me say that again. You can get something back without having to give something up. I'm in a hotel room right now in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I could be reading a book. I could be watching Netflix. I watch Apple TV. I watch Hulu. I got all these different shows going. I could watch Iron Man videos on YouTube. I could be out getting some Starbucks. I'm in my hotel room recording this podcast, and I think you can tell from the way that I talk, and that's one of my imperfections. And people say that, oh, why are you yelling? Why are you getting so excited? Because I'm energized by what I'm doing. I'm voluntarily doing this. I'm not giving up anything. This is what I want to be doing. You say, Dave, you're trading your time. You're only trading your time if you wanted to do something else with that time, but I don't. This is what I want to be doing. And the other part of my voice is from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So, I have that, oh, hey there, thanks for coming to listen to my podcast. I'm Dave Rendell from Wisconsin. My voice sounds like it's coming out my nose. I always sound like I'm a little bit congested. I've got a little bit of that Fargo, and it doesn't affect me as much as some people, but that the sound of my voice is still affected by the place that I grew up in. I'm always jealous of other people's voices, but that's why we call this the Imperfectionist Podcast. I don't have a perfect voice, but it's my voice, and I'm not worried about that, right? But I'm here voluntarily, right? That's what you want to think about. And that's another way to understand your personality is, what do I do voluntarily? In other words, when I'm not going, well, I'll do this if my employer will do something back for me. I'll clean up at the house because my partner wants me to, and they'll be upset if I don't. That's different than, I like to organize this stuff and I would do it anyway. I want to be doing this Excel spreadsheet and I would do it anyway. I want to be researching this information and I do it anyway. One of the best ways to understand your personality is ask yourself, what do I do when I can do whatever I want to do, right? But the next best question, because then people just go Netflix and napping and stuff like that. But that's usually a response to not being able to do what you want to do, right? What are the things you choose? And so it's not just what do you choose to do when you can choose it, but maybe Netflix isn't that energizing for you. And for very few people, is it energizing? And there's no real confidence related to that. And certainly a nap might return some energy. But what are those actual activities while you're alive, while you're awake, that give you that energy back? When do you find yourself saying, wow, I feel even better after doing that than I did before that? That's one of the biggest signs of energy. And what do I do those things where I feel confident going into it and I feel even more confident afterwards, knowing I've done well and thinking, I'd love to do that again. And because why would you look forward to it? Because you know it's going to turn out well. We very rarely look forward to things we know we're going to fail at, we know we're going to struggle with, we know we're going to do poorly. That hope is really important. And hope comes when your behaviors match your personality. Now, let's give another analogy, because you say, okay, Dave, you want to be doing this podcast, whatever, your energy, confidence level go up. Well, one of the reasons I'm doing this podcast is because it matches my personality. And it's a way to create content that I want to share with other people. Another way to create and share that content would be in writing. But my energy level goes down when I sit in an empty room with my laptop or a piece of paper. My confidence level goes down. And in fact, when I even think about going to sit and write, I go, oh, it's probably going to take forever and I probably won't know what to say. And by the way, I've written 4 books. So again, it's not that I can't, but I know it's going to sap my energy. And I know that it is going to take a long time and that I'm not the best at it. People come to my presentations and regularly tell me that I did very, very well, right? In fact, I'll say what they say because some people say bragging. We'll talk about bragging some other time. It's not bragging to acknowledge what you're good at and positive things that people said about that. There's nothing wrong with feeling good about doing well at something. And so when I do my presentations, people regularly tell me that's the best presentation I've ever seen in my entire life. I just did a presentation for some community college faculty and staff. And one of the women in the nursing program pulled me aside afterwards and said, I've been doing this for 20 years. And I've been coming to these professional development days for 20 years. And that's the best presentation I've seen in all those years. Right? So I do presentations, my energy level goes up, it fits me. My confidence level goes up, it fits me. And I get tremendous responses and feedback from other people because I'm better at it than other people because it fits who I am and I'm doing what I do naturally and it's going to go well. No one has ever given me that kind of feedback on my book, right? Or any of my books. They might say it's interesting, they might say it's good, they might even give it a nice review, but nobody talks about it in sort of transformational, life-changing, best of all that I've seen writing. And that's because that's not who I am. And a lot of you have, if you've paid attention to the podcast, you've met Stosh Walsh. He's been on twice, and I've been on his podcast as well. And one of the things to know about Stosh is that Stosh is an amazing writer. Stosh studied English in college. I think he used to be a literature professor. When Stosh writes a Facebook post, when Stosh writes an Instagram post, you read it like you're reading something that they assigned to you in school. Stosh has an amazing way with words. And when I read what Stosh writes, I want to read more of it. Stosh is a writer. He also gives presentations. I am a presenter, a speaker, and I also write, but writing isn't who I am. Stosh is a writer. He doesn't just write. Remember, behaviors versus personality. Stosh is at his core a writer, a person who communicates best in writing. I am at my core a speaker, a person who communicates best verbally with words and preferably in front of people. I would do even better with this if I was with a crowd of people instead of alone in my hotel room, but this is better than doing nothing, right? So you see the difference there, right? Stosh is a writer. And so when he writes, the quality of the product is profound. It's amazing. It's phenomenal because he's doing what he was made to do. Right. When I do it, it's fine. I've learned to do it well. I've learned to do it competently, but it doesn't have the same effect. It doesn't feel good to me, and it doesn't feel as good to other people. It's fine. It's acceptable. Right? So now no one's going to buy my books. But again, it doesn't matter because I get paid to speak and I sell my books as sort of a resource, but I don't expect the books to do it for me. Right? So that's a good example of the difference. Stosh's energy level and confidence level goes up when he's writing. My energy and confidence level go up when I'm speaking, but mine go down. Energy goes down, confidence goes down when I'm writing, which is why I'm not writing, because the beauty of 21st century technology is as soon as I'm done recording this podcast, it's going to transcribe it for me, and I'll be able to take all of this and put it into a book and edit it to explain my new Amplify personality assessment and talk about what I think personality is and what it isn't, and how personality and understanding your personality and having that self-awareness can help you as a person. And so I'm writing a book right now without doing any of the writing, because writing saps my energy and not destroys my confidence, but reduces my confidence, and speaking increases my energy and increases my confidence. And again, even though there's not a crowd of people here, you can hear through my voice that it's been 20 minutes so far and my energy level isn't declining because I'm recording this podcast. I'm not going to be exhausted, and this isn't taking away from my Ironman performance this weekend because I'm recording this podcast. So if you want to know what your personality is, and you want to, well, why would I want to? Why would I care? Because energy and confidence come from knowing who you are and matching it to what you do, where you are, who you interact with, the way that you live your life. And for most people, if they could have more energy and more confidence, they would take it. And that's the way to get it. So this goes back to, this isn't skills, right? It's kind of sad. We're at a hotel here, so we don't have liquid Death Mountain water. We just have a cup of water from the breakfast. Still delicious and refreshing, though. So let's talk about this more broadly. So one of the things that I do is I speak at these events, and sometimes they go on for multiple days. And so the attendees are sort of in two groups. Right? They're all coming to this big event where there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of group activities, a lot of personal interaction. And so there's basically two kinds of people we know with personality. One are introverts, one are extroverts. Introverts in general, again, we've talked about the strength of your preferences. Introverts in general would rather be alone, would rather relax, would rather keep their thoughts to themselves. They're very reflective and they don't need or love a ton of activity. Right? Extroverts are the opposite in every way. They love a lot of activity. They're likely to share even personal stuff with you almost immediately. They like to be around people, and they're happy to even be around people that they don't know. So who's going to look forward to the conference experience the most, right? It's going to be the extroverts. What's happening? Their energy level goes up and their confidence levels goes up because they go, this is what I was made for. I'm about to make 472 new friends. This is a target-rich environment. Look at all these people that I can meet and that I can talk to and I can connect with and that I can share with and I can do stuff with. And this is going to be awesome because I'm a person who loves big groups of people that I don't know that well. And so I'm excited to be at this conference for the next 2 or 3 days. Okay? That's how you understand your personality. Am I an introvert or an extrovert? Well, how does it feel to think about, to be on the plane, to be packing, to get ready to go to one of those conferences? Do you start feeling that energy going up, that confidence going up? Are you starting to get excited? Are you like, ugh, I wish I didn't have to do this and I'd rather keep working from home for the next few days. I don't want to do this, right? Introverts are going to have that sensation, right? An introvert who looks ahead and sees that conference on the calendar is going to say, oh, I don't really want to do this. I hope the activities don't go too late. I hope there's not too many of them. I hope they already start planning, when will I be able to sneak back to my hotel room? When will I be able to close the door? When will I be able to close the blinds? What are the things that are required? Who do I already know there that I can talk to so I don't have to talk to new people? Now, some of you are going to start saying, whoa, wow, then you need to learn how to interact with people. You need to learn social skills. That's a mistake. Again, we're not talking about behaviors. We're talking about preferences. The introvert, we're not saying the introvert looks forward and goes, I will be so awkward and will be unable to communicate with anybody. That's not what we're talking about. That's not where the feeling is coming from. That person, when you interact with them, if you're an extrovert and you interact with an introvert, you might have no idea that they don't want to be there. You might have no idea that they'd rather not be talking to you. You might have no idea that they're starting to feel exhausted. This is not skills. This is the sensation that the situation causes inside of you. It's not a lack of skill. It's not a lack of effort. It's not a lack of discipline. It's not something that the person needs to develop. We're going to talk about that in a couple of weeks. There's no such thing as a bad personality, right? So that's the mindset that people start to have. Oh, Dave, you're saying I'm not good at a party, or I'm not good in a group. This isn't about what you're good at. This is about, how does it feel? What happens to your energy when you're in that group? I'd rather not be at that conference either. I'm happy to be the speaker on stage, but that's not really an extroverted activity. I'm not a big extroverted person. I'm happy to be by myself. I've been on the road for the last couple of days, driving mostly by myself. I had a couple of things planned yesterday that didn't work out. I had more time by myself, and I wasn't bothered by that. And when people talk about meeting a bunch of people I don't know and don't have a relationship with, I'm not really into it. I'm not a very big extrovert, and so I don't like doing that kind of stuff. But if you interacted with me, you wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, this guy's got problems. This guy's got social anxiety. This guy. No, it's just that it's not energizing to me, and I would avoid it if I could. When the conference organizer says, Dave, do you want to come to the cocktail reception the night before and meet 400 people that you've never met before and who've never seen you speak and don't know anything about you? I kind of like, or I'll go for a little while and just hang out with the person I know, or I'll leave pretty quickly, or I'll sit by myself. But if someone talks to me, or if somehow something comes up because I'm wearing a pink jacket and somebody wants to know about it, I perform well. I perform well. But that doesn't mean that I want to be there. It doesn't mean I was looking forward to it. It doesn't mean that I want to stay, and it doesn't mean it's energizing to me. It's not. It's draining, and my confidence level is low when it comes to small talk. I'm going to do fine, but I don't like it, and I'm not as good as somebody who's naturally sort of just the person. They are looking forward to it. They do like it. And so this isn't about skill level, right? This is about how does it feel? What happens to your energy? Well, that's happening. And so one of the ways for you to diagnose, to understand, to increase your self-awareness, the way to understand your personality is when you even look at an event, what starts to happen to your energy? While you're in that activity, what happens to your energy? Is it going down? Is it going up, or is it maybe staying flat? It's fine. You don't care one way or another. It doesn't really matter, right? And again, some of us have stronger preferences and some of us have weaker preferences. Another example would be you're doing an activity with people and there's no plan. There's no plan. When you have a planner personality, when you like to have structure, when you like to have order, when you like to have reservations, when you like to be in control, when you like to have knowledge about what's going to happen, when you like to be able to sort of predict and control the future, that's going to make you feel uncomfortable. Your confidence that things are going to go well when there's no plan is going to go down. Your energy level about that activity is going to go down. You're going to be drained by that activity because there's going to be a lot of anxiety around that activity because you like to have a plan. You naturally prefer to have a plan. And when there isn't a plan, your energy level goes down and your confidence level goes down. But if you're a spontaneous person, if your personality and your preferences are to fly by the seat of your pants, to be flexible, to go with the flow, those people are literally energized by that. We have no idea what's going to happen tonight. Just imagine the possibilities. This is so exciting. Look at that, right? This is so exciting. One person is excited by something that the other person is overwhelmed by, not because the one person is good and the one person is bad, the one person is right and the one person is wrong, the one person is able to handle disruption and the other person isn't, right? It's that the one person prefers to know, to plan, to have structure, to have order, and the other person doesn't, right? And they not, and that, think about that. It's not that they're like, oh, I should have structure and order, but I won't. They prefer the surprise, the who knows what could happen, who knows who you'll meet, who knows what'll come up. Maybe we won't even be able to eat at that restaurant. Then we'll find this other amazing restaurant. Maybe somebody will give us a recommendation. There's all this confidence that, right, your confidence level goes up when you're doing things that are consistent with your personality. That sounds insane to somebody who's a planner, and I'm very much a planner, so that confidence would sound insane to me. It's probably not going to go well. We're probably not going to run into anybody. There probably won't be any restaurants open. We probably aren't going to have anything to eat. We're probably going to end up wasting a ton of time and being hungry. My confidence that this will go well is very low because this doesn't match the way I like to do things. It doesn't match my preferences, right? Our energy level goes up, our confidence level goes up when we do things that are consistent with our personality. Our energy level goes down and our confidence goes down when we do things that are inconsistent with our personality. So let's talk management and leadership and just relationships in general. But if we're talking management and leadership, do you want your employees to be energetic and confident? Do you want to be in your career? Do you want to be energetic and confident? Then the way to get there is to do things that are consistent with your personality, to have your behaviors match your preferences, your natural instincts to do what you were made to do, to be who you were made to be. And if you try to fight that as a leader or as a person, you end up sapping, draining people's energy. There's a reason people say this job is sucking the life out of me. There's a reason people say I feel drained. You can't see it, but you can feel it. You know when your energy levels are high. You know when your energy levels are low. Sometimes you say, oh, I just don't have time to do what I need to do today. Very rarely is it a time issue. Most of the time when we say that, what we're saying is, I don't have the mental and emotional energy to do this right now, even though there's still time on the clock. I want to stop because this doesn't feel very good and I don't have anything left. I'm empty. Nobody wants to be empty. Nobody wants to be exhausted. Remember about the business I told you at the beginning. He said it's exhausting. It's not, it was, because it still is. It's exhausting to do things every single day and try to be somebody that I'm not. So that's the warning. Why does any of this stuff we're talking about matter? And I haven't really talked about that to this point. Why does any of this matter? Right? Personality matters because if you want energy and you want confidence and you want to avoid exhaustion and fear and anxiety and a lack of confidence and a lack of hope, then you need to match who you are to where you are, what you do to what you want to do, your behaviors to your preferences. That's where success comes from, but not just outward success, fulfillment, meaning, purpose, happiness comes from having an aligned life, a life in which you get to be who you were made to be. And if you want productivity from other people, if you want your employees to be happy and successful, if you want your children to be happy and successful, then part of that job that you have is to match who they are to what they do, to help them find that and to help them explore that, to help them discover that, and not to fight that, not to do the direct opposite. And sometimes parents think they're doing it. Yeah, I make it tough on my kids because the world is tough and they have to learn that. Maybe, but the world's going to be tough regardless. But if you're doing what you were made to do, the world's still tough. If you get to be who you were designed to be, the world is still tough. We don't have to make it harder than it needs to be. And it doesn't help anybody to drain them of their confidence and their energy. That doesn't actually make them stronger. Right? That's a mistake. And we have, we're going to cover this in a different episode, but no pain, no gain, and what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That's not true. I've been injured in all sorts of different ways, and it hasn't killed me, but it hasn't made me stronger. In fact, my body doesn't work as well as it used to because I've been hit by a truck. I've been attacked by dogs while riding my bike. I've broken my leg in half and had it screwed back together. All sorts of parts of me don't work at 100% because they were damaged in a way that was painful and wasn't gainful. I don't know if gainful is the word. It was painful and it wasn't gainful, right? All it did was make me worse. It didn't make me better. No pain, no gain is a mistake because you can have tons of gain without pain. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. And not only that, you can have gain with pleasure, right? I enjoy being on stage. There are people who love putting together spreadsheets. There are people who love planning events. There are people who love all sorts of aspects of their job, and they are gaining financially, but also emotionally and with happiness and meaning and purpose because they love what they do. They're gaining with pleasure. No pain, no gain is not true. What kills you, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger is not true. Sometimes what doesn't kill us hurts us very, very badly and damages us and keeps us from being a job that's slowly sucking the life out of you and draining your energy on a daily basis. It isn't making you stronger. It is killing you, right? It's painful and it's not gainful. That's an absolute mistake, and we'll deal with that at a different time. And so that's a mistake. And so when you're an employer, like, I'm going to toughen these people up, and it's just all about discipline and all this kind of things. You don't need discipline. What you need is to match who you are to where you are. I'm about to do an Ironman triathlon, and most people think, oh, that takes a lot of discipline. It doesn't. I want to be active. I want to be outside. I want to ride my bike. I'll give you an example. I'd be devastated if they canceled the Ironman this weekend. And think about that. I'd be devastated if they told me you don't get to swim 2.4 miles, bike 112 miles, and run 26.2 miles. We will not allow you. And what do I have to do? I have to pay for the privilege of doing that in a race. Think about how ridiculous that is. If it was discipline, then why am I paying for it? Why am I asking for it? Why would I be disappointed if it didn't happen? Why would it be like, oh, good, I don't have to go to the gym today. I don't have to work out today. I do it because I want to do it. And I was just, I told you this the last time, I watched YouTube videos of people doing extreme events and Ironmans and stuff like that. And last night I watched one where this guy was training for this event. It was called Patagon Man, I think. And you swim in this really, really cold water, and you bike up these really steep mountains, and then you climb over these rocks and trails. You do an Ironman in just absolutely brutal conditions and very, very difficult weather. So he was training for that. And he was talking about all these fitness tips and all these goal setting tips and stuff like that. But it turned out to be right around the time of the pandemic, and then they canceled the race. So he said, okay, well, I'm going to do this thing on my own in this different place. And then there was a huge storm, and he said, okay, well, I'm going to do a smaller version of that race in this different place that'll still work during the storm. And then the storm happened, and he kept going even though it was dangerous. This guy wasn't disciplined. He discipline would have been, I'm not going to do this race in this storm in these terrible conditions because it's ridiculous. I'll just wait till there's a better situation. That's what discipline would have been. What this was obsession. This was devotion. This was passion. He wanted to do the thing that he was energized by the very thing that's draining most people. He wanted to be active. He wanted to take on the challenge. He wanted to push his body to limits. He wanted to attack the environment around him and conquer it. And when he wasn't allowed to do that, he looked for another way. And when he wasn't allowed to do it, he looked for another way. And he even took chances with his life, not because he was disciplined, but I could argue because he wasn't disciplined, because he needs to do that because that's who he is. There's a cool thing you do that they do when you cross the Ironman finish line. It used to be a guy named Mike Riley. He was known for 40 years as the voice of Ironman. I got to give him a hug at the end of Mont Tremblant. I don't know if he wanted to. I should have probably asked for consent. But he's the voice of Ironman, and the reason he's the voice of Ironman is because every person, thousands of people, cross the line at an Ironman triathlon, and Mike Riley is the announcer, and he says, David Rendell, you are an Ironman. And for most people, an Ironman isn't something they do. It's part of who they are, because rarely do you get to doing something that extreme if that's not a fundamental part of your nature. If you're not some kind of achiever, if you're not some kind of person who likes to take on challenges, if you're not a person who enjoys to some extent the daily effort that it takes to train for that kind of thing, because that's another mistake that people make. Oh no, you work real hard so you can have that moment crossing the finish line. I don't know if that's true. If you don't get some kind of enjoyment from your daily run, if you don't get some kind of enjoyment from your daily ride, if you don't get some kind of enjoyment from your daily swim, right? I look forward to it. I want to do that. I want to be outside. I want to be active. When I'm around the house for too long, maybe bad weather or whatever the conditions, and I haven't gone for a walk, I haven't gone for a run, I haven't gone for a ride, I haven't been able to move, I start to get antsy. And what it would take discipline is for me to not do it because I want to do it. When this guy wasn't able to do Patagon Man, and then he tried to come up with an alternative, and then he tried to come up with another alternative, he was trying to find a way to be able to do what he wanted to do because it matched who he was, right? And he gets energy from doing it, and that's hard for other people to imagine. When you don't get energy from doing it, it's easy to imagine the person doing it as disciplined, not just simply being consistent with their personality. That's alignment for them. So everybody doesn't need to do an Ironman. Everybody doesn't have to do an Ironman. But the people who do it, they say, you are an Ironman. They didn't say you finished an Iron Man. They're saying it's part of who you are, it's part of your identity, it's part of your personality. One of the reasons my first tattoo was an Iron Man tattoo is because to some extent it's a representation of who I am. My wife said, aren't you going to be embarrassed someday when you're in the nursing home and your tattoo looks ridiculous? And I said, no, at what point would I be embarrassed about an Iron Man that I did, right? It wasn't like I was out drinking one time when I was in my early 20s and I got some ridiculous tattoo in a ridiculous place and then didn't even know about it till I woke up the next day. This is something I invested a significant amount of time and energy in and am proud of, and it's a part of my identity, right? You are an Iron Man. So another question for you to ask yourself is, how would I describe myself in terms of are? I am a versus I do this, right? You know, are people say I am a runner, I am a hunter. But it's different to say I'm a fisherman or I'm a hunter than to just say, yeah, I like to hunt. Liking to hunt isn't necessarily the same as somebody whose identity is almost, I spend a lot of time, a lot of energy. I like to golf versus I am a golfer. It's part of who I am. It's part of my identity. I am an athlete. For me, whether I'm doing Ironmans or whether I'm doing ultra marathons or I'm doing whatever, whether I'm golfing, I am an athlete. I want to be doing something active. What are those terms that you would put after that for yourself that, again, from before, transcend situations, transcend environments that aren't things you do because you have to, they're things you do because you want to, because they give you energy and you have confidence. So the last one for today, we haven't talked about it so far because it's not something it sort of gives you, but one of the things about like the sensation is we aren't just energized when our behavior matches our preferences. We aren't just energized when who we are matches what we do. Also, time disappears. There's a great book by Mahai, Csikszentmihalyi, we've talked about before, called Flow. And he says when you're in flow, when you're sort of performing at a high level and it feels effortless, think about everything we've been talking about so far. You're performing at a high level and it feels effortless, time disappears. So one of the ways for you to understand your personality is to ask yourself, when does time disappear? And then also, when is time go so slowly? And when time goes really slowly, that's a signal that you are not in the right spot, that you are not doing something that matches your personality. And when time goes quickly and almost seems to go almost maybe even faster than you wish it would, because you're enjoying the experience. Every time I do this podcast, I go, oh my gosh, I don't know if I thought I was going to cover two things today, and it looks like we're only going to cover one. Every time I do this podcast, I think, I don't know if I have enough to fill the time. I don't think the time goes quickly because I'm doing something that fits who I am. Right. But like I said, when I sit down to write, the time goes so slow. How long have I been doing this? How much longer do I need to keep doing this? How come this isn't working as well as it should? Constantly looking at the clock, constantly checking the clock. And that's a classic thing in offices. People call people clock watchers. Well, why is somebody watching the clock? Because they don't want to be there. And when you don't want to be there, it seems like the clock just isn't moving at all. Whereas when you want to be doing what you're doing, the clock almost seems to fly forward. And you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe the day's over already. And in an ideal world, and this is feedback that I've gotten, and that's when I know that I'm doing my job right. I've had people say, oh my gosh, Dave, your 1 hour presentation or your 2 hour workshop, I had no idea that it had been that much time. Normally I'm wondering, when is this going to be over? And then you said you were done. You said thank you. And I realized, holy cow, that went so quickly. When things are going well, when we're enjoying things, when we're having energy and confidence, when we're having happiness and fulfillment, time flies, and the reverse is true when we're not doing things that are consistent with who we are. So one other way for you to diagnose your personality, to understand, to increase your self-awareness, is to ask yourself, when does time fly for me? When does time just drift away from me? When does it seem like I could do this all day or all night, or I have been doing it all day and all night and I didn't even realize it? Those are great ways to understand who you are. So, in our first episode on personality, we talked about how it's preferences, not behavior. You don't have a work personality and a home personality. You are who you are, regardless of where you are, right? The personality doesn't change, just because the behaviors change, right? And so we need to understand that core personality. Where does that personality come from? The next episode we talked about, it comes from nature, from genetics. It's just a literally hardwired part of who you are. And not only is it not changed by your circumstances, sometimes who you are is so strong, so powerful that it ends up actually affecting those circumstances. You end up influencing the people around you and the events around you in ways that they might not even notice and you don't even notice, because your behavior has that kind of influence, because you're behaving that way because of your personality, not the other way around, right? I behave that way because of the circumstances. No, you behave that way because of your personality. So, and then today, it's that your energy and confidence, it's like the payoff. Why do I care about whether my behavior matches my personality or all these kinds of things? Because in that business owner example I gave you to start with, it's exhausting to be someone that you're not. It's exhausting to behave in a way that's inconsistent with who you are. And that also means it's energizing to behave in a way that is consistent with who you are. It's energizing to be who you are and match who you are with where you are. And you also have confidence in those situations. You expect good things to happen and for things to turn out well. And when you're doing things that are inconsistent with your personality, you expect things to go poorly, to not turn out well. And then also, time flies. There literally is a cliche: time flies when you're having fun, but not just fun. Not just Netflix, not just watching your favorite sports team. Time flies when you're doing meaningful activities that match who you are, when you're getting to invest your energy into something that actually gives you a return on that energy. And again, remember that analogy. You can either go, work is trading my time and my energy for some money that I can use to kind of create the life that I want. It doesn't have to be that way. You can actually go to work and come home with more energy than you started with and still get the money. You can have gain without pain. You can have gain with pleasure if you understand your personality and then you act consistently with that personality and build a life of alignment. And as a leader and as a parent, you can be a person who helps other people to do that, help them discover their personality and then help them find situations that match their personality. Remember the Doodle Boy example. Wouldn't it be nice to be the teacher who encouraged Joe to start an Instagram account and to put his art and his doodles out into the world, instead of being the teacher who told him to stop it and pay attention in class? The one person said, don't behave in ways that are consistent with your personality, exercise discipline and do something else instead. That's where the payoff comes from. And the other person said, what if you were even more of who you are, amplification and alignment? What if we found situations for you to share this and actually do more of this? And now Joe's been able to do more and more and more. And Joe's having plenty of gain. We talked about his Marks and Spencer deal, the department store in the UK. We talked about his new gallery show in Germany. We talked about collaborating with Nike. Joe is having a tremendous amount of gain without pain. He's able to use what he naturally does well, and what he enjoys doing to create success for him and create a life that a lot of us wish that we had. So that's our third installment of our discussion on personality. I hope this was helpful. I hope that you can start to craft a life that is more consistent with your personality and that gives you more energy at the end of the day than you had at the beginning of the day, that gives you more confidence and more hope, and one in which time goes quickly and enjoyably instead of dragging on and on. So I am David Rendell. This is our first Roadshow podcast live from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, my birthplace. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope the technical aspects of it go well. It was kind of fun to take on the challenge of setting this up in a mobile way. So I look forward to seeing you next time. Again, send in your comments, send in your emails, rate the podcast, subscribe. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube. I'll see you next time on the Imperfectionist Podcast. My name is David Rendell, and I am an Iron Man.